The last video for today is going to be the concept of congruent segments. In the first video you watched, the instructor talked about the segment addition postulate. That is, that part plus part equals a whole when putting segments together. The second video talked about the betweenness of points and what it takes for a point to be between another two, and used a little algebra to find a missing variable and use that concept of betweenness to solve. The last thing we're going to talk about is the concept of congruent segments. In words, we say that congruent segments are those segments that have the same measure, or they're segments that have the same length. In symbols, we would say that two segments are congruent to each other if they have the same measure, and our congruent symbol looks like the equal sign, but it has a squiggly line on top. This right there is our symbol for congruent. And in a picture, we can show segments that are congruent like this. Let's say we have two segments AB and CD, and they are both 2 centimeters in length. In your picture, to show congruent segments, we use what we call hash marks. And if AB is congruent to CD, I put 1 hash mark on each of those lines. The hash marks are the way in geometry that we indicate that segments are congruent. So if you ever see these hash marks, it's shorthand notation for telling you they have equal length. So let's say we have the figure drawn in yellow. Now it looks like it's a rectangle, and although at this point in time we don't have enough information to know for sure it's a rectangle, we'll assume that it is. We would show that these two sides of the rectangle are equal to each other. They have the same length. They're congruent. And the top and the bottom, we couldn't use 1 hash mark now, because if we just put 1 hash mark, then we'd assume that the 3 sides that are marked are equal, and we know that isn't the case. So what we use is we use 2 hash marks. So in other words, the sides with 1 hash mark, that would be this one and this one, they're congruent. And the sides with 2 hash marks, that would be the top and the bottom, they're congruent to each other. So again, the hash marks are a way that you can look at a drawing and determine which segments are congruent.